It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for being with us today. It is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. I want you to welcome farmer Ray Vester on the program. Ray is an 18-year member. He was on the plant board for a combination of 18 years, and he joins us now, Conduit News Radio. Ray, welcome, sir.
Good morning, Paul. How are you today?
I am doing well. I'm doing really well. So, Ray, I wanted to have you on because I've heard your story. I have heard your story and others like it on the program for a long time from several different people in different sources. And so where I want to start is let's start. I'll go over your resume. You were appointed by Governor Mike Huckabee, correct?
Yes, sir. I served 5 terms under Governor Huckabee, and then when he finished out his terms, Governor Beebe was elected. His first 2 years, he didn't appoint me. I guess maybe I was a little too conservative for him, possibly, but he and I had a good relationship. But after my replacement didn't turn out too well, for the next 6 years, he appointed me to 3 terms. And then Governor Hutchinson appointed me to the last term I served, which came due a year ago, a little over a year ago.
And you were not reappointed, correct?
Yeah, I was the first time, and I served 2 years under him. But then after that, and after our battle in the legislature, he chose not to reappoint me.
Okay. Why do you think that is? Well, you mentioned the battle. What battle? Tell us about the battle.
All right. Governor Hutchinson, when I talked with him to get his approval of an appointment for those first 2 years under him, after that, I also visited with him, and he gave me that appointment about he was seeking a Secretary of Ag. And I was one of the 2 that I know of who interviewed with him. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of enlightened that day of the interview as the first question he asked me is what I felt about the Department of Ag and how did it need to change. I said, well, it doesn't really need to change, I don't think. It was started with the purpose of promoting agriculture. And I said, Mr. Bell and Butch Calhoun, who were the previous 2 secretaries of Ag, and I said did an excellent job. They have promoted it. They've developed the farm to market aspect and program. He said, well, I just think it needs probably to be strengthened. And he said on the plant board, he said, now I don't really understand how people are appointed. I said, well, there's 7 positions that you, the governor, appoints of your choice of the person, and that's the cotton farmer, the rice farmer, of which I was the representative, 2 farmers at large, the fertilizer and oilseed representative, and also about 2 years before they added a forage producer and a cattleman. And those 7 are yours to appoint. 2 are University of Arkansas professors that serve ex officio, and the other 9 are appointed by industry. And I said that's the way it was set up since 1917, as far as I can read and understand.
Right.
And his response to me, he said, well, I just don't think that's good. I really think the governor needs to appoint all the members to that so that he has people who serve him. And I didn't realize how impacting that statement would be to me in the coming months. But our conflict came over the fact he tried to. I learned one thing. When the Department of Ag was started, the legislation called for 3 employees. I really think the beginning budget was maybe around $300,000. And that was supposed to employ 3 individuals to promote agriculture. And I may not be exactly right on that number.
Yeah.
But I discovered one thing. The governor wanted it to be more than that. And so that started changing, and he kind of used a term I'm accustomed to in the banking industry called cram down. And that's in mortgages, but anyway, that's a different number. And he was taking over control of the plant board. The plant board has been non-political since 1917. We went through 4, that I recall, massive epidemics in the state. The first one was in southwest Arkansas in Miller County, and the black fly infestation, which we today call buffalo gnats, was really devastating the cattle herds. And the plant board was asked to go take care of that problem, or went to take care of it. I don't even know if they were even asked. That's just their responsibility. And they went down there, and within 18 months had solved the problem. And 2 very important things that didn't have to happen. I think there was no legislation to allow them, because that was their responsibility, and there were no monies appropriated for them to spend to do that, because their income, the plant board gets a $500,000 appropriation from the legislature each year. Mm-hmm. And that $500,000 goes into an emergency fund, and it sits in escrow, and it's used if an emergency breaks out in, whether it's livestock, poultry, or even in row crop. That money can be used for that. Well, the plant board's never used any of that money. It's always sat there and never been used, because the plant board, through its fee structure and through its testing and through its licensing and there's 11 divisions in it, creates enough income to take care of that problem.
So about how much money a year? How much money are we talking about a year the plant board bring in?
Well, I don't know how much a year, but our annual budget of its own money is $950,000 that is budgeted to spend each year. They never quite spend all of it, but it is enough money where we use actually no good. That includes salary of employees. Now, they're considered employees and are in the state retirement plan, but their salary is paid by industry, not by anyone.
Well, my question is, we're talking with Ray Vester, 18-year member of the plant board, appointed by Governor Huckabee. My question to you, Ray, is this money that is there, and there's been 2 attempts now to take over the plant board. It's been defeated. You just said, what it sounded like to me, that Asa wants to appoint all members because he wants loyalists there that support him. Instead of, right now, I think we have a pretty good operation where you have some from him and then others from industry, and people are kind of, agriculture is a big deal here in Arkansas. It certainly is our lifeblood, and it sounds like he wants it to be more centralized. Right now, it's more you can have people that actually can debate issues without fear of political repercussions. But do you think he wants that money? Do you think one of the reasons he's tried to take over the plant board is because he wants access and wants to be able to spend that money how he sees fit versus what the plant board wants to do with it?
Most any situation in government or business or anything, all you have to do is look at the money. Yes, he desires to have that $950,000 annually in his coffers, and the battle we got into over the fact he was wanting to change the process from a number or a type 1 transfer to a type 4 transfer. And type 1 transfer, the money stays with the division that it comes to. Well, it's not even government money. Okay, that's the first thing, but it stays there. The type 4 is the fact that at the end of each year, the controlling agency, which in this part would have been the Secretary of Ag, sweeps that account empty. And they start over the next year. So go ahead.
I want to ask you this. How much of him wanting to take over the plant board has to do with Monsanto, in your opinion?
Well, I think it grew to be Monsanto also when he found out how powerful the plant board was and how we're, of the 50 states, is the only state that has any non-political regulatory authority. Politics is blocked to a degree from coming in and affecting what we do. Every other state has lost that, and they've become politically controlled, and the governor speaks for everything. And that's the whole. That's Monsanto grew into the problem he wanted. I think he foresaw. He wanted to control the money. He wanted to control the board and tell the board what to do. And then Monsanto comes along, and we had met with Monsanto 50 times over the previous 5 years, explaining to them the whole time we weren't going to approve their product because they did not allow our scientists or any other ag scientists to test their product. And that's the basis we stood on, the fact we didn't allow it.
So why have you heard anything? Why didn't they want to test the product? I understand Monsanto hadn't tested dicamba. Is that correct? But you guys wanted to test it and run it through maybe one of the universities or something. Is that accurate? Where am I wrong there?
No, you're not wrong. That's what we always do. And pretty well every new chemical, every new process that is going to be sprayed and used in the state comes through our university scientists. And that was blocked by Monsanto. Late in this process, they finally brought us information where they had what they called independent studies by 4 different, it wasn't ag universities, 4 different testing companies. One was in New Mexico, one was in Alabama, I think one was in Illinois, and I don't remember the 4th one. And we looked at it, and they had done all these tests. But then when you get to the last page, the testing companies didn't develop the results of those tests. They didn't make a statement. That went to Monsanto, and Monsanto scientists interpreted what they had tested. So it still wasn't independent. And that was our biggest battle. And we told them,
Talk about the financial incentive for Monsanto here. Okay, so if they have a dicamba resistant seed, right, and then dicamba is now, if it were to be used, right, there would be people in a position to where, well, we can't buy any other seed because if people are using dicamba, we've now got to buy their seed in order to stand up to the potential effects that a non-dicamba seed, would die if dicamba was being used around the fields.
Well, not only that, but any other agricultural product almost that is raised in our state. And that's exactly what's going on. 2 or 3 years ago, Monsanto was running an ad about their Extended Max soybeans, and they said once this is in the marketplace, in 3 years, we will control 93%. We will have 93% of the production. And I understand why they could make that ad, because they knew if Farmer A plants dicamba-resistant beans and he's surrounded by Farmer B, C, D, E, and F, because Farmer A is big, all of those farmers will have to plant the dicamba-resistant beans to keep their crop from being killed. Mm-hmm. I think we see that. If we allow dicamba to be sprayed, it's going to eliminate non-GMO seed. It's going to eliminate seed that is organic seed. It's going to attack. It's already been proven to attack the honeybee people here in the state. They have a big examination of what it's done to them listed out there.
So you mean their honey crop has decreased when dicamba is sprayed? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir, immensely. And the biggest thing it decreased from is the other in nature plants where bees get their nectar from is also being destroyed. And the other big thing, it's destroying timber. Dicamba is timber is very sensitive to dicamba. And a lot of the trees survived it this year because we had an extremely wet August that put tons and tons of water into the timber. And the only way you can possibly save something like that is over-irrigate.
Mm-hmm.
And we believe that's exactly what happened this
Wow.
year. But dicamba is an old product. It came into being in the 50s at the same time 2,4-D and 2,4,5-T came into being as a product to use as a herbicide. And I don't know if dicamba is a brother to those two products or a first cousin. But it's developed the same way, and it has the same effect. 2,4,5-T drifts a bunch. 2,4-D will drift a bunch. 2,4,5-T is the one they call Agent Orange.
Yeah.
And that can be devastating to most anything it touches. Dicamba is very similar in nature.
I can't help it, but I have to ask this question. If this product's been around since the 50s,
Yes.
I mean, is it possible that someone sat around and said, you know what we need? We need to sell people the cure. We need to release something that is going to have a negative impact on the crops, but then we'll sell them the one thing that can survive this negative chemical.
Well, I don't know about that. The biggest thing that happened to Monsanto, in my personal opinion, is they rode Roundup till it was no longer a viable product, till resistance was so bad, and they had put all their money into Roundup, and glyphosate is the proper name. I'm using farmer terminology, and they had nothing else. They hadn't invested in any other product, and they pulled this out of the closet because they didn't have any other option, and Liberty Link and these other groups were really hammering them. And with Monsanto, it's also the money. Mm-hmm. It's also the money.
Have you ever protested as a member of the plant board? Again, you're not getting reappointed by ASA. Have you ever protested or questioned why Monsanto lobbyists are allowed in plant board meetings?
Well, they're allowed. Well, they're scientists. We invited them in, and we have open meetings. No plant board meeting is closed to the public. If two of us meet for lunch, we can't tell anybody because that's considered a plant board meeting, and we have to invite the public to go eat lunch with us. That's how strict our regulation is.
So you never raised any questions about a specific person or lobbyist being present?
Well, we had an issue on the plant board when the governor appointed a farmer at large to a position as farmer at large, and he wasn't a farmer. He was an employee of Monsanto Chemical Company. And we battled that for a good while, complained, and after into the battle while, there was enough public pressure that person resigned, and he appointed another individual to take that position. But, that's...
Okay, yeah, so I'd heard that one before, that there was a Monsanto employee appointed to an at-large farmer position, and that didn't make any sense, and I guess the legislature had tried to remedy that. What about who's replacing you? And the person that replaces you, Ray, on the plant board, do they have any connections to anybody else?
No, not that I know of. He's a gentleman in Harrisburg, Arkansas, who is a rice farmer. A couple of his neighbors are on the Seed Growers Association, and they're very positive about him, and I don't think he has caused any problems, but he has no experience in this field. The biggest thing, the governor didn't reappoint Larry Giroux or Danny Finch. Danny was a cotton farmer representative. Larry was the oilseed and fertilizer representative, and he didn't reappoint those. And because the main reason I think he didn't reappoint, they were leadership on the board that helped lead that board to make decisions. A board's only as good as the leadership on it. And the governor has consistently and slowly tried to eliminate any leadership of people who would speak up and be willing to say anything. And
so do you think they're okay? Do you think that you're no longer on the board, and these other men are no longer on the board because they were so outspoken against the use of dicamba? And do you think that eventually dicamba is going to be, I mean, if he succeeds in taking over the plant board, if for some reason there's the legislative will to do what he wants and to eliminate the status quo as it is, I mean, do you think that then, for example, let me just ask you this. If Asa had what he wanted, if the plant board looked the way he wanted it, would Monsanto be being sprayed right now? Or dicamba?
There would be no limitations on Monsanto's product of dicamba. They went to the Legislative Council asking us to expand, or the plant board to expand the dates you can produce it, and the plant board went back and looked at the weather conditions, the temperatures, the inversions that happen, and they didn't approve that. They left it where they had placed it because it was scientific information we used to decide when it could be sprayed.
We got last question, Ray. I'm sorry, then we got to go. The plant board is 100 years old. I'm told you guys wanted to recognize that in some way, and you guys met resistance by actually getting an official recognition of the 100-year anniversary of this historic board. Is that true?
That's true, and at the same time, an edict came out. Any plant board employee that is going to speak at or attend a conference has to get the permission from the Secretary of Ag, who gets the permission from the governor, and has to write a 300-page essay for it when they get back, telling them what they learned. So he's blocking them from interacting with other states as much as possible.
Ray Vester, I appreciate it, sir. Stay in touch. I'd love to have you on again soon. And if we didn't cover anything you wanted to cover, we can do another interview, okay?
I appreciate it very much, Paul.
Okay.
I appreciate what you do. This information has to be out to the public so they know really what's going on. We've got maybe one reporter in the state, in the statewide paper that prints this information. I don't know about local papers, but none of this information goes out to the general public.
I know.
And it's going to take. Dicamba will wipe out family gardens, flower beds, shade trees, and everything else if it's allowed to be randomly sprayed without any regulation.
Ray, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you, Paul, and I'll be happy to come on at any time.
All righty.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Folks, we got to go to break. Back in just a moment.